Hello everyone, this is Reza Dorrani. Today's video is about creating cascading dropdowns in PowerApps. We will utilize these cascaded dropdowns in multiple scenarios inside a form control as well as for filtering gallery data. So let's get started with the video, but first, my introduction. The sample app here for the demo is a help desk application where users can create tickets in the system. The home page is listing out all the tickets that are currently created. The user can click on the plus icon to go ahead and create new tickets through the form control, or the user can view the ticket, or the user can go ahead and make modifications to the ticket that was created. Now the data for these tickets is coming from a simple SharePoint list at the back end. The list is called Service Desk. And the cascading dropdowns that we would like to create for this scenario is when the user selects a department, the request type should only showcase those requests that are associated with that specific department. Now in my case, the department column is of type choice, and I have 4 choices that I have defined right here. Now this column type depends upon your use case. You could have this as a lookup column. This could even be a text column that you can transform into a drop down on the form. In my example here, this is a choice column. And request type is a single line of text column currently. We will transform this into a drop down inside the app and make it a cascading drop down so that when the user selects a department, only the respective request types show up. Now the mapping for the cascading dropdowns, I'm going to show 2 cases. One, I have an Excel file in which I have a table created which has the request types mapped to the departments. So for example, if the user selects the marketing department, then only the following request types, which is business card and event banner, should show up. So we will leverage the table in this Excel file to create the cascading dropdowns. And I also have a secondary SharePoint list in which I have all my request types mapped to the department. Once again, request type is a text column and the department is a choice column which has those same values. So to begin with creating the cascading dropdowns in PowerApps, I've gone ahead and inserted a couple of labels, one for department, one for request type. And I have gone ahead and inserted 2 dropdown controls. And I have renamed these to DRP department and DRP request type. So first I will go ahead and import the Excel file. So I'll go to add data, search for Excel and import from Excel. Selected my Excel file. And right here, I have my table in that Excel file, which has the mapping for the departments and the request type. So I'm going to select that and click connect. My table is called ticket category table in that Excel file. Now for the department dropdown, I would like to get the information from the department column right here. Now department in my case, in the Excel file is having repeating values. I only need the distinct values. So in order for me to fetch the distinct department names and place them in this dropdown here, I will use the following formula. I will call the distinct function. It's asking me for the source. The source in my case is the ticket category table, which comes from the Excel file. And then the column in my case that I would like to perform the distinct operation on is department. And once I complete that, and if I preview the app, my department dropdown is now populating the distinct values from the Excel table column department. Next, for request type, for creating the cascading dropdown, based on the selection of the department, I would like to read the data of the request type. So the formula for request type would be as follows. I will use the formula called filter, wherein I will filter the table, which is my ticket category table, which is coming from that Excel file, where the department column is equal to the dropdown department, which is this dropdown, dot selected, dot result. Now, once I complete this, I would also have to define from which column I would like the data to come from. So in my case, I'll put a dot and then pick the request type column from my Excel file. And this now will populate the request types based upon the department selection. So let me preview this app and test this out. Currently, the department selected is marketing, so the request type is business card and event banner, and that is true based on the data in the Excel table. If I change this to IT, this will now give me the request types related to IT. So this is how you can quickly create a cascading dropdown leveraging data from an Excel file. Now the next scenario for the cascading dropdowns is where the data source is coming from my SharePoint list. The SharePoint list is connected in my app right here called ticket category. So for the department column now, I will use the following formula for the items function. I will use choices because my department column is of type choice, and I will pick my list, which is ticket category, and then select the column. And in my case, the column here is called department. The department values right here, which is IT, facilities, marketing, and security, is coming from the choice values in this SharePoint list. If this was not a choice column and a text column, for example, just like the Excel table, I would have to use the distinct function to give the distinct values. Now to get the request type values depending upon the department selection, for the request type dropdown, the items property would be as follows. Filter the ticket category list where the department, now it's a choice column, so dot value is equal to DRP department, which is my dropdown right here, dot selected dot value. For the value property of the dropdown control, ensure that you're selecting the column that you need the values to come from. In my case, I want the values to be picked up from the title column. So once I pick title, that's my title column where the request types are coming from. So now if I go ahead and preview this app, once again, I have my cascaded dropdowns, department selected IT. I see the request types for IT. If I change this to, for example, security, I see the request types for security, and all of this information is coming directly from this SharePoint list. Now the next scenario is to add these cascading dropdowns into a form control. So when I create a new record here, I have a form control that is connected to my main service desk list, wherein I have my departments and I have my request type. In my case, request type, single line of text column. So in my app, the request type is showcasing as a text box. But I would like to create a cascading drop-down effect wherein when the user picks a department, I would like to showcase the request types associated with the department right here in a drop-down format. So to achieve that, the first step is I will select the request type data card and go ahead and unlock this data card. The reason why I've unlocked this data card is because I want to change the control of type text here to a drop-down control. So first step, I will go ahead and delete this text box. This will result in some errors that we will fix shortly. Next, I will go ahead and insert a drop-down control. I will increase the height of my data card and adjust the position of the drop-down control. I will rename this drop-down control to DRP form request type. Now the items property for the request type dropdown needs to come from my secondary SharePoint list, which has the cascading dropdown values populated. So to achieve that, I have my department dropdown right here. In this case, it's a combo box control. So I will go ahead and pick the name of that control, head over to my request type dropdown, and for the items property, I will go ahead and plug in the following formula. So filter my data source first, which in this case is ticket category, where the department, which is a choice column, so dot value is equal to the value that's selected in this drop-down control, the name for which I copied earlier. So the name of that control dot selected dot value. And once I'm done with this, once again, ensure that you have the drop-down control selected. And for the properties, ensure that the value for this dropdown is coming from the title column, because in my case, the values are contained in the title column. Also, I have these two errors that we have to fix. So let's check the errors out. The first error is associated with the Y property of the error message label. Because we deleted the text box control, and I replaced it with the drop-down control. So all I have to do is change the control name right here with the new control that I just added. So that fixes the first error. And then the second error is around the update property of the data card. Previously, it was relating to the text box control. Now I have to replace this with the drop-down control dot selected dot title, because my data is coming from the title column. Now let's go ahead and preview this app. If I select a department, let's say I select the department IT, notice how the dropdowns are cascading. I get request type associated with my department IT. If I change this to marketing, it will only show me information regarding marketing. If there is no department selected, the request type dropdown would be empty. One more thing that we have to do is for the drop-down control right here. If I head over to the default property, it's hard-coded to 1. I just have to replace this with parent.default, and the parent for this drop-down control is the card right here, and the default property of the data card is the actual value in the request type column. Now if I go ahead and preview the app, and let's say I go back to my home page, if I select an existing record to edit, this will now populate the values for me based on the data for that record. So for laptop connectivity issue, the department was IT, and the value selected was computer issue. So let's go ahead and create a new ticket. I've just added the title and description. So in my case, I'm trying to create a ticket wherein I need a banner for an event. So the department that I will select here is marketing, and the request type will only show me those request types that are associated with the department marketing. I will select event banner, enter the remaining details and click save. And just like that, this new ticket got created. Right here on my home screen, I can see that my ticket has been registered. If I view the ticket information, here is the department, here is the request type. And if I go back and try to edit this request, I can see that my cascading dropdowns are in effect and the default values are set correctly. Here's marketing, here's event banner. And if I go ahead and select a different department, you will see that the cascading effect is taking place, and I can only see the request types pertaining to the department that I have selected. And now one final use case of the cascading dropdowns is in filtering data. So in my home screen, I can see all the tickets that have been created. Now I would like to create a filter right here so the user can select a department and select the respective request type, and the data in this gallery should be filtered according to that information. So for that, I will go ahead and add some controls right here. So I just added a couple of label controls and a couple of drop-down controls right here. So I have my department and my request type. Now to populate my department, for the items property, once again, I will use the choices function. So choices of my list dot the name of the column, because it's a choice column. In my case, I can use this formula. The department column is of type choice. Now if I preview my app, I will see my department values showing up right here. Now I would also like to add an option here where the user can select all departments, right? The choices does not have that value. So how do I go about doing that? On the app onStart function, which is the function that gets executed the first time when the app is launched, I have this formula called clear collect. So I'm creating a collection, and in this collection, I'm creating this object wherein I have a column called value, and then the value for that I'm plugging in as all. And then I'm also going ahead and adding additional data into this collection, and this data is coming from that same column department, and I'm using the choices function to grab all the values. Now, why did I add value all? If you look at the table that the choices formula returns, the table has a column called value, and in that it has all the values. And that is the reason why when I was adding my own value of type all, I had to respect that same structure. Now that I have this collection created, and because I'm in the edit mode of the app, I'm designing this app right now, I will go to the app object, right click and run onStart so that this collection has values in it. And if I go to view and go to collections, I can see the collection right here, and I can see all the values in it, including my value, my custom value, all. For the drop down control right here for department, For the items property, I will leverage that collection, which is collection department. And now if I preview the app, I get the all value as well as part of my dropdown. Now next step is to create that cascading dropdown. So for the request type column for the items property, the formula will be very similar to what we did before. The request types are coming from the secondary list. So filter that list where the department dot value, because it's a choice column, is equal to the dropdown department, which is this dropdown, dot selected dot value. And once I'm done with this, for the request type dropdown, in the value property, I will select the column from where I would like to get the values from. In my case, it's the title column. Now, if I preview this app, because my department is all, I don't have a mapping for all, so it's not going to show me any request types. And if I select any other request type that exists, the cascading dropdown effect will come into play. And right here, I can see my request types related to IT or marketing or so on and so forth. Now for all, I would not like to show the request type filter at all because there is no values in it. So for that, all I have to do is for the label and the drop-down control, I've selected both of them. I will head over to the visible property and set the visible property as follows. So it will only be visible when the department dropdown dot selected dot value is not equal to all. So if I preview this, I won't see those filters if it's all. And if I select anything other than all, the request type cascaded dropdown will show up. Next step now is to filter the gallery right here. And for that, I will head over to the items property of the gallery and I will go ahead and plug in my formulas. So my formula will be filter my list where the department dropdown dot selected dot value is equal to all, or the department column in my list dot value is equal to the department dropdown dot selected dot value. Now, if the value selected in the filter dropdown that I provided here, if that value is all, then this will evaluate to true. And in this case, it is actually true. If you look at the Boolean value, it's showing as true. So filter my data source, and then this evaluates to true, or I have another condition. Now, if the first condition is true, it won't even evaluate the next condition. And true means get me everything from my data source. That means when all is selected, it will go ahead and grab everything from my data source. So if I preview this app, I'm looking at all my data. Currently, there are only 6 tickets. So I see all those 6 tickets right here. But if I go ahead and change the dropdown, so let's say I select marketing, I will only see the data related to marketing. And this is because the first formula right here evaluates to false, and then there's an OR condition. Now it goes ahead and evaluates the second part of my formula, which is actually applying the department filter. Now there is another filter that I would like to apply, and that's my cascaded dropdown filter. In this case, it's showing me all the data related to department marketing. In my case, I only have 2 tickets, but I need to also filter the data now based on the request type that is selected right here. And for that, once again, in my formula, I will go ahead and add a second condition. Now this is my first condition, so I'm going to put this under brackets. And now I'm going to add my second condition. So I will go ahead and plug in the AND operator right here. So my second condition is if the request type dropdown.selected.title is blank, or the request type column in my data source is equal to the selected title in my dropdown control of request type. Now, why have I added this condition here which says dropdown request type.selected.title is equal to blank? Well, if I select all, in that case, my request type dropdown is blank. It doesn't have any value. So for that, I'm actually making this check. Hence, when I select all, this condition evaluates to true, and this condition also evaluates to true. So true and true, that's true. That's why it will show me all the data. Otherwise, if I go ahead and select any department other than all, In that case, it will filter the data based on department and then filter the data based on the request type that is selected in that dropdown. So now if I preview my app, you can see that it is showing me the information for department marketing, request type business card. And if I change this to event banner, now this is the ticket that we created during this demo. And if I change this now to any other department, it will go ahead and get me the data associated with that request type. And once again, if I select all, it will show me all my tickets. So that's how you can create cascading dropdowns even for filtering your data. If you enjoyed this video, then do like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and don't forget to hit the bell icon so that whenever I post my latest video, you get notified about it. Thank you so much for watching.